Here is the truth about sparking deep longing, without resorting to manipulation. Pay close attention, because this goes far beyond the surface-level tactics of silence or calculated distance. You don't plant yourself in a man's mind by going ghost or acting like he is invisible. Empty space doesn't guarantee desire. That is a falsehood that modern dating culture loves to sell you. You make him miss you by becoming irreplaceable. By being the woman who leaves a permanent mark on his psyche, not through volatility or emotional withdrawal, but through a rare blend of genuine warmth, raw honesty, and absolute self-value. Be the woman who carries an aura of serenity. The one who can pour out love without losing her center. The woman who loves fearlessly, yet possesses the backbone to withdraw her energy with grace the moment she is taken for granted. That is the energy he will obsess over when you are gone. He won't miss you because you tried to force him to feel a lack. He will miss you because what you gave him was rare, real, and impossible to replicate. Most people think that mystery comes from disappearing, but real mystery comes from being one of a kind. It comes from knowing your worth so deeply that you never chase love, beg for attention, or cling to someone who doesn't show you effort. It comes from being emotionally intelligent enough to give and emotionally disciplined enough to walk away when it's necessary. A man doesn't miss silence. He misses the experience he lost. He misses the energy, the peace, the softness, the confidence, the emotional safety, and the light you brought into his world. Because here's the truth. Men don't miss women who disappear. They miss women they cannot replace. There is a profound difference between absence and impact. Absence is simply physical distance. Impact is emotional memory. And no amount of disappearing can create emotional memory if the connection was shallow to begin with. That's why the woman who plays hard to get may be exciting for a moment, but she doesn't remain unforgettable. She becomes a puzzle to solve, not a soul to cherish. But the woman who understands her value, the woman who treats him with kindness, who listens, who supports, who inspires him to be better, but also doesn't tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, or confusion. That woman becomes the one he compares every other woman to. She becomes the standard. She becomes the quiet voice in his mind saying, "You had something extraordinary, and you weren't ready for it." And that's why he misses her. Because a man doesn't miss someone who abandons herself to gain him. He misses the woman who could love him deeply, yet still walk away if she needed to. The woman who didn't beg him to stay. The woman whose world didn't collapse without him. The woman who had her own passions, her own dreams, her own purpose, her own life. The woman who didn't lose herself, trying to prove she was worthy. Men crave women who don't make them the center of their existence. They crave admiration, yes, but they also crave respect. And nothing communicates respect more powerfully than a woman who respects herself first. She doesn't need to scream, threaten, argue, or dramatize. Her silence is not punishment. It's clarity. It's calm. It's the mature understanding that she refuses to remain where she is not chosen, prioritized, or treated well. And that kind of strength is magnetic. You want to know what keeps a man awake at night? What makes him replay memories in his head? What makes him sit there, wondering why he can't stop thinking about you? It's not the games you play. It's the way you made him feel. It's the emotional safety he felt around you. Because very few men admit this. But deep down, they want a place where they don't have to perform or pretend. They want someone who sees their vulnerability as strength, not weakness. They want loyalty, softness, and peace, not perfection. They want a woman who believes in them, who challenges them, who inspires them, who respects them. And when a man loses that kind of woman, it hits differently. Not immediately, but eventually painfully, deeply, because emotional rarity becomes obvious only after it's gone. And suddenly, The woman he once took for granted becomes the standard he can't find anywhere else. Her voice becomes the one he misses. Her presence becomes the one he craves. Her absence becomes the loudest silence he has ever experienced. That's how a man truly misses you. Not because you vanished, but because you existed in a way that changed him. Because you were soft but strong, loving but wise, open but not desperate, present but not dependent. Because you were the woman who knew how to care and how to walk away with dignity when he didn't show up with the same energy. You didn't have to punish him. You didn't have to beg him. You didn't have to manipulate him. Your absence spoke because your presence once meant something. That's the difference. So if you want a man to miss you, stop thinking in terms of tactics and strategy. Think in terms of identity. Build a life that is full and meaningful, with or without him. Love him deeply if he deserves it. Let go gracefully if he doesn't. Carry yourself with the quiet confidence of a woman who knows she is valuable, even if someone else fails to see it. Because the truth is simple. The right man will never risk losing a woman who is rare. The wrong man will lose her, then spend years regretting it. And the woman who knows her worth will never fear either outcome. That is how you become unforgettable. The moment a man realizes he misses you isn't when you disappear. It's when your absence reveals the value of your presence. It's when the contrast becomes undeniable. When he begins to feel the difference between you and everyone else he tries to replace you with. Because when a woman is unforgettable, comparison becomes torture. And that's something no game or manipulation could ever achieve. There is something powerful that happens when a man meets a woman who stands firmly in her self-worth. It shifts him. It challenges him. It forces him to face himself. He may not understand it at first, and he may even resist it, because true emotional connection requires vulnerability. And vulnerability terrifies men who are used to being emotionally guarded. But once he experiences it, once he feels the depth and authenticity of a connection that wasn't built on pretending or performance, it becomes impossible to forget. He remembers the way you listened without judgment. He remembers how safe he felt, telling you things he had never said out loud. He remembers how, around you, he felt seen, not for what he did or what he owned, or how strong he pretended to be, but for who he was underneath all the layers. Very few people experience that kind of connection in their lives, and even fewer are brave enough to hold on to it when it appears. But once it's gone, it leaves a silence that echoes. A man doesn't miss the woman who was always available, always waiting, always adjusting herself just to keep him comfortable. He may appreciate her convenience, but he doesn't fear losing her. What he misses is the woman who honored herself. The woman who gave without losing balance. The woman whose love was a choice, not a dependence. The woman who didn't collapse just because he walked away. And here's the paradox. The more grounded you are in yourself, the more deeply he feels your absence, because your presence never came from need. It came from desire, from intention, from depth. You weren't in his life because you couldn't live without him. You were there because you chose to be. And the day you choose differently becomes the day he realizes what he has lost. That realization comes slowly. It doesn't hit him when you stop calling or texting or posting. At first, he thinks you'll always be there. He assumes there will always be another chance, another conversation, another door left open. He believes he can come back when he's ready, when life settles, when he feels like it. But time begins to reveal a truth he never expected. You are evolving. You are becoming stronger. And without him even realizing it, you are slipping out of his reach. And suddenly, he feels something he didn't predict. The pressure of loss. It's subtle at first. It starts with small moments. Hearing a song that reminds him of the way you laughed. Driving past a place where you once sat together. saying something, and instinctively wishing he could tell you. He opens his phone, expecting a notification from you out of habit, and when it isn't there, there's a strange emptiness he can't explain. He scrolls through conversations with other women and feels nothing. He tries to distract himself with work, with friends, with noise, but none of it fills the space. That's when he begins to understand you weren't just another woman. You were rare, and rare is impossible to replace. A woman with self-respect becomes a mirror that a man cannot escape, because when he loses her, he is forced to confront a truth he avoided, that his behavior cost him something extraordinary. And the weight of regret is always heavier than the weight of effort. Men don't learn through comfort. They learn through consequence. When everything is always available, nothing is valuable. When something can be lost, it becomes priceless. But the reason he misses you is not because you punished him. It's because you refused to punish yourself by staying somewhere you weren't appreciated. You didn't slam doors or scream out ultimatums. You simply chose peace. You simply stepped back with grace. You simply allowed him to experience life without you. And life without you was quieter, colder, and less meaningful than he expected. That's when longing begins. He starts wondering what you're doing. Not because he's nosy, but because he misses the emotional warmth he felt around you. He starts replaying conversations, analyzing things he didn't pay attention to before. He starts imagining what his life would be like if he had chosen differently, communicated earlier, shown up more, been brave enough to meet you where you were. And the more time passes, the more he realizes something painful. Women like you do not come around twice. That awareness doesn't show up dramatically. It shows up in the silence of his thoughts, in the quiet moments before he sleeps, in the mornings when he sits with his coffee and feels a strange emptiness that he cannot explain. It shows up when he sees a couple walking together and suddenly feels a sharp ache in his chest. It shows up when he hears your name and his heart drops slightly. It shows up when someone else tries to love him and he finds himself detached, distant, unable to feel anything real because he's still haunted by the memory of what he lost. A man doesn't miss a woman because she disappears. He misses her because life without her feels like a downgrade. And this is the most powerful part. You don't have to do anything to make that happen. You just have to be who you are. You just have to honor your value. You just have to let time reveal what was always true. Because when a woman carries herself with dignity, she doesn't have to teach a lesson. Time does it for her. You become unforgettable, not by demanding attention, but by being the type of woman whose presence is a blessing and whose departure is a lesson. And every man eventually learns the difference. The moment life forces him to sit with himself is the moment everything becomes clear. Because eventually, the distractions fade, the excitement wears off, the newness of other people loses its shine, and he's left alone with the truth he tried to ignore. That's when reality hits with full force. Not because he suddenly wants attention, but because he finally understands the difference between temporary comfort and genuine connection. A man may try to throw himself into work, into hobbies, into meaningless conversations, just to avoid thinking about you. He may pretend he's fine, pretend he's moved on, pretend he doesn't care. Pride will make him act like nothing affects him. Ego will make him hide his regrets. But the heart has no pride, and the soul has no ego. And what he feels when the world goes quiet is unmistakable, the loss of something real. Because deep down, he knows that women like you are not ordinary. You are not replaceable. You are not another temporary chapter. You were a turning point. Someone who changed the way he saw himself. Someone who challenged him to grow. Someone who awakened emotional parts of him that he spent years avoiding. And losing a woman who awakens a man is a wound that time doesn't easily heal. Eventually, He begins to realize why your presence felt different. He remembers the calmness in your voice, the softness of your eyes, the way you never forced connection, but allowed it to unfold naturally. He remembers how he felt understood, not judged, not analyzed, not controlled, but understood in a way he had never experienced. That kind of connection is rare. It's sacred, and when it slips away, it leaves an emptiness that nothing else can fill. He starts to realize that what he mistook for independence, keeping you at a distance, withholding emotion, pretending he didn't need you, was actually fear. Fear of being seen. Fear of being vulnerable. Fear of letting someone close enough to touch the parts of himself he kept locked away. You didn't expose his weaknesses. You accepted them. But acceptance can be terrifying for a man who has spent his whole life believing he must stand alone. And now he feels the consequences of that fear. Not because you punished him, but because he punished himself by choosing distance instead of depth. He begins to understand that closeness doesn't take strength away. It builds it. He learns that the right woman does not weaken a man. She amplifies him. She elevates him. She becomes the safe space where he can fall apart without feeling like he's failing. But now that space is gone. And that's when he begins to miss the simplest things, the small details he never appreciated enough. He misses the way you laughed at his jokes. He misses the way you looked at him like you believed in him. He misses the way you remembered the details he thought no one noticed. He misses the comfort of your presence, the feeling that everything was lighter, easier, calmer when you were around. It's not the grand moments he misses. It's the quiet ones, the conversations that lasted for hours without either of you noticing. The way you listened, the feeling of peace when you sat together in silence. The way you made him feel at home, not in a place, but in a person. And that's when regret begins to grow. Not suddenly, but slowly, painfully, in fragments. He starts questioning himself. Why didn't I show up? Why didn't I say what I felt? Why did I assume she'd always wait? Why did I push away the one person who truly saw me? He won't admit these questions to anyone else, but they repeat in his mind like echoes he can't silence. This is where his understanding shifts. He realizes that strength isn't measured by how much he can avoid feeling. It's measured by how much he's willing to risk for something real. And he realizes that you risked your heart while he protected his. You chose love while he chose comfort. You chose to be open while he chose to stay guarded. And now he's paying the price of emotional fear disguised as logic. Eventually, he begins to understand something profound. A woman with self-respect is not someone he can just walk back into casually. She is not waiting. She is not frozen in time. She is not the same woman he left. She has grown. She has evolved. She has transformed into someone even stronger, wiser, and more radiant. And that realization is what terrifies him most. Because now he knows that even if he came back, he might not be chosen. He might not be enough. He might not deserve her anymore. That fear is what makes a man miss you with a depth he never expected. That's what keeps him awake at night. That's what makes him replay every moment, every conversation, every opportunity he wasted. That's what breaks through his pride and makes him feel something he was terrified to feel: humility. Because regret is heavy. It doesn't arrive with tears or dramatic confessions. It arrives quietly, slowly over time. It arrives when he tries to move on and fails. It arrives when he realizes that what he lost wasn't just a woman. It was peace. And peace is not something a man forgets. He will stare at his phone more than once. He will type a message and erase it. He will replay your last conversation, trying to find an excuse to reach out. He will wonder whether it's too late, whether you've already healed, whether you've already met someone who sees your worth clearly. And for the first time, he will feel what you once felt: uncertainty, vulnerability, fear of loss. That's when he finally understands something he never understood before. A woman who knows her value is not afraid of losing a man, but a man who knows he lost a valuable woman becomes afraid of everything. And that is the moment he truly misses you. There comes a moment, a turning point, when a woman realizes that missing someone is not a reason to go back, that loving someone is not enough to sustain a connection where effort is one-sided. She begins to understand that loyalty without reciprocity is self-betrayal, and waiting for someone who isn't ready becomes a slow erosion of her own spirit. And that is the moment everything changes. Not for him first, but for her. Because instead of focusing on what she lost, she begins to focus on what she learned. She starts to build herself again, not from desperation or pain, but from clarity. She picks up the broken pieces not to return to who she was, but to become someone stronger, wiser, more complete than before. She stops trying to figure out why he couldn't show up, and starts understanding why she deserved someone who could. And with that shift, something powerful begins inside her. She releases him, not out of anger, not out of bitterness, but out of deep acceptance. Acceptance that she cannot force someone to meet her at the level she offered. Acceptance that love is not proven by chasing or convincing. Acceptance that someone else's inability to see her value does not define her value. Acceptance that she deserves someone who chooses her without hesitation. This kind of release is not loud. It's not dramatic. It's quiet, steady, mature. It doesn't require closure, apologies, or explanations. It's simply a woman deciding that her peace is worth more than confusion, inconsistency, and emotional uncertainty. And the moment she chooses herself, truly chooses herself, everything shifts. She begins to reconnect with her life, her purpose, her passions. She starts investing in her goals again. She rebuilds her joy without waiting for someone else to contribute to it. She redefines her standards not from a place of fear, but from wisdom. She stops explaining herself. She stops shrinking to be understood. She stops apologizing for needing the kind of love that is real, present, and reciprocal. Her energy changes, and the world feels it. She glows differently. She moves differently. She thinks differently. Not because she is pretending to be strong, but because she actually is. She becomes grounded, calm, radiant, magnetic. And that transformation is what pulls life back toward her. Opportunities, connections, clarity. People notice the shift, even if they cannot explain it. She has become a woman who carries herself with quiet power. And this is precisely the moment when he begins to feel the full weight of what he lost. He watches her evolve, and he realizes she is no longer reachable in the way she once was. He senses her distance, not the kind created from disappearing, but the kind created from healing. He sees that she no longer waits for his attention. He feels that her heart no longer leans toward him. He notices that she no longer reacts, no longer asks, no longer checks in. Her silence now isn't the silence of strategy. It's the silence of completion. That silence is deafening, because now he can feel the difference between a silence designed to provoke him and a silence built from peace. One is manipulation, the other is transformation. And transformation is irreversible. For the first time, he realizes that the door he assumed was open has quietly closed. Not slammed shut out of anger, but gently closed with dignity. And the sound of that closing door becomes the loudest wake-up call of his life. He starts questioning everything. Why didn't I step up? Why didn't I tell her what she meant to me? Why did I assume I had endless time? Why did I think she would always be there. He realizes he mistook her consistency for permanence. He thought her love was guaranteed. He thought her patience had no limit. He thought her presence was something he could put aside and pick back up whenever he pleased. And now he sees the truth. She was a privilege he didn't protect. But here is the quiet tragedy. He realizes this at the exact moment when she no longer needs him. At the exact moment when she has built a life that is full without him. At the exact moment when she is transformed into someone he can admire, but no longer access. And that is where the deepest regret begins. It's not losing her presence that breaks him. It's losing the possibility that he could ever be the man she once hoped he could become. He feels the weight of knowing he had something extraordinary, and he let fear, pride, and emotional hesitation destroy it. He sees now that love requires courage, vulnerability, and effort. 3 things he withheld until it was too late. He becomes a witness to her becoming. He sees her smiling genuinely. He sees her laughing again. He sees her surrounded by people who value her. He sees her stepping into her purpose, her confidence, her destiny. He sees her shine brighter than she ever did with him. And what hurts him most is understanding that she did not need him to achieve any of it. That's when he misses her in a way words cannot express. Not just her presence, but her belief in him, her softness, her patience, her vision of who he could be. He misses the version of himself he could only access in her light. And he realizes too late that her absence is not a pause, it's an ending. Because now, he understands something he never understood before. He didn't lose a woman. He lost the future he could have had with her. And the most painful part, he knows that someone else, someone braver, someone ready, will eventually cherish what he took for granted. Someone else will step into the space he was too afraid to fill. Someone else will love her the way he now wishes he had. This is the moment when a man finally understands the difference between missing someone and losing them. Missing is emotional. Losing is permanent. And that is when he breaks. There comes a day when the pain turns into clarity, and clarity turns into strength. A day when the weight you once carried becomes the foundation you rise upon. A day when you look back not with longing, but with gratitude, because what you thought was breaking you was actually shaping you into the woman you were meant to be. That is the beauty of healing. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It arrives quietly, almost unnoticed, in simple moments. The first morning you wake up and don't think about him. The first time you laugh and realize it's real. The first night you fall asleep without replaying the past. The first time you feel excitement about the future instead of fear. That's when you realize you didn't lose anything. You were redirected. Redirected toward yourself, toward peace, toward purpose, toward a version of life that doesn't revolve around someone else's choices. You discover that your value never depended on his ability to see it. Your worth never diminished because he didn't choose you. Your future didn't collapse because he walked away. You learn that closure is not something someone gives you. It's something you decide for yourself. You learn that healing isn't erasing the past. It's understanding it, honoring it, and then releasing it. You learn that self-love is not a cliché, but a revolution. It is the quiet rebellion of refusing to abandon yourself ever again. Because in the end, you don't rise by being loved by another. You rise by loving yourself enough to never settle for half love again. You start to see that everything you wanted from someone else, consistency, loyalty, clarity, effort, intimacy, honesty, begins within you. You stop looking outward for validation and build it inward. You stop waiting for someone to choose you and choose yourself first. You stop sacrificing your needs to keep a connection alive. And that's when everything changes. Your energy becomes different. You move with confidence and ease. You stop fearing loss because you know you are whole. You stop begging for effort because you now give that effort to your own life. You stop chasing love because you know that the right love will never require you to betray yourself. And the world responds. Doors open, opportunities appear. People show up who appreciate what you bring. You attract relationships built on mutual respect, not desperation. You attract friendships that feel safe. You attract partners who communicate, who choose you fully, who aren't afraid of depth, who don't run from intimacy, who see you clearly and stay. And when that love arrives, because it will, you will understand why everything happened the way it did. You will realize that losing someone who didn't value you was never a loss. It was liberation. You will realize that the heartbreak was not punishment, but preparation. You will realize that the ending you feared was actually the beginning you needed. And in that moment, the story no longer hurts. You won't wish to go back. You won't wish that he returned. You won't wish that things had been different. Because now you know you were never meant to shrink yourself just so someone else could feel big. You were never meant to wait in emotional limbo, hoping someone would finally show up. You were never meant to carry the weight of a relationship alone. You were meant to rise. He will remember you not as the woman who broke, but as the woman who rebuilt herself. Not as the woman who begged, but as the woman who walked away with dignity. Not as the woman who needed him, but as the woman who chose her worth over fear. And that is what will stay with him forever. Because the real lesson isn't how to make a man miss you. The real lesson is how to stop missing someone who wasn't meant to stay. The real power is not in disappearing. It is in becoming the woman who refuses to settle. Becoming the woman who radiates strength and softness together. Become the woman who keeps her heart soft, but her boundaries ironclad. The woman who holds no fear of goodbyes. Become the woman who lingers in the memory because she is one of a kind. And when you fully embody that power, you will eventually look at your past and say, I'm glad you walked away. It was the only way I could find my way back to me. If you are tuning in right now, if this message is vibrating in your spirit, if you feel a shift occurring, understand that this is not a conclusion. It is an origin story. You are walking into your true potential. You aren't suffering a loss. You are in the midst of a massive reclamation. So breathe deep, hold your head high, fix your posture, and reconnect with your strength. You are the gift. You are the revelation. You are the benchmark. You are the exception. And your narrative isn't finished. It is just getting good. If this video empowered you, gave you a new perspective, or touched your heart, take a moment to hit that subscribe button. Do it not just for the videos, but for the movement we are creating. A tribe of resilient, intuitive, and high-value women claiming their throne. Subscribe and stick around, because we are only just beginning.